Welcome everybody to the special Friday edition of Renegade Wrestling. I am your host JJ Williams, back once again to answer more of your viewer submitted questions. This is the Hall of Fame edition. All these questions are going to be about the Hall of Fame. I've got a lot of them to get through, so I'm going to try and get through them as quickly as possible. So let me go ahead and apologize in advance if I don't give the detailed answer that you're looking for, but there's a lot of questions here, so forgive me. We've got two questions from Ricky Lawson. First one, hey JJ, is this WWE Hall of Fame class the greatest of all time? Quite possibly. The only class that I can think of that outshines this one is the WrestleMania 21 version with Hogan, Piper, Sheik, Volkov, Jimmy Hart. That was a star-studded list right there. This is probably the second greatest all-around Hall of Fame class ever, in my opinion, though. Ricky also asks, I know this might be my opinion, but do you think the reason why WWE hasn't put in great wrestlers like Savage, Owen, Davey Boy, Rude, and Pillman in the Hall of Fame is because they might be afraid that people remember their deaths, or in Savage's case, his relationship with Vince, as opposed to how great of wrestlers they were? No, because if that was the case, then people like Junkyard Dog, High Chief Peter Maivia, other people that have passed wouldn't have got in. I think the reason that these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame, in some cases, I don't know if they deserve it on their own, like a Pillman. Pillman's a great talent, don't get me wrong, but does he deserve a solo place in the Hall of Fame? I don't think so. Does he deserve a spot in there as a member of the Hollywood Blondes? Or if you induct the Hart Foundation in? Absolutely. But Brian Pillman on his own, not quite sure that he deserves that honor solo. Savage wants his entire family to go in at the same time. That's what's holding him back. Owen, for many years, it was the lawsuit brought against WWE by Martha Hart, which, according to what I've read, as of April 3rd, has been settled. So Vince and company can now start using Owen's likeness for DVDs and stuff, as long as they pay royalties to Martha Hart per the agreement, which means that next year at WrestleMania 30, we might finally get Owen in the Hall of Fame. We might also finally get a bio DVD on Owen with matches and stuff. I think it would be great. And I've said before, give the proceeds of his DVD sales and whatnot to Owen's favorite charity. It'd be a great way to help remember him. Let me see here. Aaron Hainault. I apologize if I pronounced that wrong. Aaron asks, with the passing of Paul Bearer, do you like the way they're using it in the Taker Punk match at Mania, and should he have gone in the Hall of Fame instead of Booker T? I do like the way they're using Paul Bearer, Percy's death in the storyline. Everyone I've read reports from says that Paul would have loved the angle. I agree with that. I think that just ignoring his passing in the storyline would have been disrespectful to his memory. Not using it in any way, as much as he loved the business. Should he have gone in the Hall of Fame instead of Booker T? No. Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle will get his day in the Hall of Fame, no question, but I don't think he should have gone in just because he died. That's a problem I've had for a long time with WWE. They did it with Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero, going back to Ricky's question. Tragic death. If they wanted to not put guys like Owen and Davey Boy and Rude and Pillman in because of their tragic passings, Why did Eddie go in so quickly? Something to think about. I don't think that somebody of that caliber should go in the Hall of Fame strictly because they pass away. I don't think it's right. Does Paul Bearer, Percy Pringle, William Moody deserve his spot in the Hall of Fame based off of his accomplishments? Absolutely. But if they weren't going to put him in this year to begin with, they shouldn't have just thrown him in there because he passed away. Booker T deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame. I've talked about this already. I think he should have gone in there with Stevie Ray as Harlem Heat because I think he accomplished more as a tag team wrestler than he did as a singles, even though he was a 6-time world champion. But Booker T, at least, you know, I think Booker T's spot in there is perfect, and Paul should go in at WrestleMania 30, hopefully with The Undertaker. Cape Rayer 23. I have 2 questions. With Bob Backlund going into the Hall of Fame this year, which he rightfully deserves, what would you pick as Bob Backlund's top 3 best moments? Honestly, Cape Rayer, I don't know Backlund's history that well. I wasn't watching back then. Obviously, his run with the championship, second only to Bruno Sammartino, I believe, would be one of his moments. Defeating Bret Hart for the title, with Owen convincing his mom to throw in the towel. That was a good match. Yeah, those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. I know it's not 3, but that's what I can think of. And then the second part, which of the following Hall of Famers had the best match at Mania? Austin versus Brett, WrestleMania 13. Michaels versus Angle at WrestleMania 21. Or Edge Foley at Mania 22. Thanks and keep up the good work. Casa D18 number 1. I've got to go with Michaels Angle. Maybe it's just personal bias because I was there and saw that match live, but that was a phenomenal match. Dare I say one of the best matches in WrestleMania history. Philip Evans says, hey JJ, do you think it's odd that Triple H did the one thing Vince never could, get Bruno to agree to go into the Hall of Fame? I do think it's a little bit odd, but I think that Bruno appreciates the change that Triple H is trying to bring to the company, even though it's not as evident on the surface. You can kind of see little bits and pieces of it, you know, going around there. The fact that we got Bruno and Backlund in the Hall of Fame this year, the fact that the Owen lawsuit is finally resolved, Punk's 434-day reign as champion, Lesnar's return to the company, all things that people never thought they'd see, and have all pretty much happened since Triple H has been in pseudo power. So I think it's great that he was able to get Bruno in. I think it was just odds between Bruno and Vince. Once Vince was able to take a back seat and let the young blood more or less take over the company, I think that's what really sold Bruno on the Hall of Fame. Henry Shrek, speaking of Bruno, wants to know, what are my thoughts of Arnold Schwarzenegger inducting Bruno Sammartino? At first I was taken a little back by it, but the more research I've done, realize how good of friends that Bruno and Schwarzenegger are. And so I'm okay with it. I think it's going to be great for the WWE, great for ratings. It's a good move. It's not Schwarzenegger's first time fiddling around with the WWE. He was on SmackDown back in 1999. They presented him a WWE Championship and declared him the box office heavyweight champion of the world. So it's kind of cool to see Schwarzenegger come back now and induct his buddy Bruno. Speaking of people inducting people, Mario Zamora, good buddy, wants to know, he says, I hear Stephanie McMahon is inducting Trish. What are your thoughts? I think Lita should induct Trish. I was saying that from the beginning, that Lita should have inducted Trish. Longtime rivals, best friends, both came into the company around the same time, both left the company around the same time. I definitely think that Lita should have been the one to induct Trish Stratus. Kirby Shottis has 2 questions for me. First one says, do any of these wrestlers deserve to be inducted in the Hall of Fame in the future? I'm just going to read the names off and I'm going to say yes or no to each one. Goldberg, maybe. Maybe. Jake Roberts, yes. Dean Malenko, on his own, not really. They've already inducted the Horsemen, but they didn't induct his entity of the Horsemen, so I'm not sure if Malenko really deserves a solo spot in the Hall of Fame or not. Great technician, don't get me wrong. I love Malenko's in-ring work. But is he Hall of Fame worthy? That's the million-dollar question. Warrior, as much as I dislike him, he does deserve a spot in the Hall of Fame. He was a big part of the WWE's boom period there in the late 80s, early 90s. Defeating Hogan at Mania 6. Wrestling Savage at Mania 7. You know, personal feelings aside, Warrior was a big part of the WWE during that time and deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame for everything he was able to do to draw for the WWE. Lex Luger, this is another tough one. Based on personal opinion, I would say no. But based off of what he's done for the business, championships, drawing ability, put Luger in there. Rick Rude, yes. DDP, yes. Muta, it's an interesting one because Muta never really competed for the WWE, I don't think. And if he did, it was, you know, hit here, miss there, hit here, miss there, come and go, come and go. You know, one-shot appearances, basically. He never really had a steady run in the WWE. But there's other people in the Hall of Fame that didn't really wrestle for the WWE either. If it was just a regular wrestling Hall of Fame, I'd say absolutely. WWE Hall of Fame, I'm going to have to say no to Muta. Chyna, yes. Again, serious heat with WWE, serious heat with Triple H, but she did things that everyone thought that women shouldn't do, and she made room for the divas like Beth Phoenix and Natalya and Tamina today. Paul Heyman, absolutely. Absolutely deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame. Kirby's next question says, my granddad used to love Bruno and told me that in his prime he used to wrestle a high-pace, relentless, hour-long wrestling matches. If I had to choose 3 wrestlers to go into a time machine and wrestle Bruno in his prime, who would they be and why? As far as talents today, I'd have to say Punk, Daniel Bryan, and the man that got him into the Hall of Fame, Triple H. I think all 3 of them could put on classic matches with Bruno in his prime. And all 3 of them are in their prime now. Triple H, you know, maybe a couple years ago, not as primed as he was, you know, when he was facing The Undertaker the last couple years. But those 3 guys, I think, could put on some sick matches with Bruno. Don Marlin, Julianne Waller both have similar thoughts. Don Marlin wants to know my top 5 people who should be inducted this year that aren't going in. And Julianne Waller says, my thoughts on Trump getting in when WWE were thinking about Cyndi Lauper. Who would I have picked as celebrity for this year? Hell, who would have been my Hall of Fame class for this year? Well, I posted this on a little group page that I run on Facebook, Owen Hart for the WWE Hall of Fame, Please Martha. Every year that he doesn't get in, I change the year on it. This is the class I posted a year or two ago that I wanted to see get in. A couple of these guys got in when the Four Horsemen got inducted last year. They got inducted in that big group, but I think that they deserve spots on their own. So I'm going to go ahead and just read that entire post that I put. Headliner would be Randy Savage. Co-headliners Owen Hart and Arn Anderson. Diva, Miss Elizabeth. Manager, J.J. Dillon. Tag team, the British Bulldogs. And for the celebrity wing, Andy Kaufman. Now granted, Andy didn't wrestle in the WWF, WWE, but he did have that long-standing rivalry with Jerry the King Lawler in Memphis that was chronicled in the movie Man on the Moon. Did a huge angle to help get both Lawler and Kaufman and wrestling over in the media's eyes. And for that, I think he deserves a place in the WWE Celebrity Wing of the Hall of Fame. Adam Buskirk with the last question wants to know, hey JJ, love the show. My question is if you could choose who goes into the Hall of Fame next year, who would I choose? I'll throw everybody I just said out the window because I don't want to just copy that. We're talking WrestleMania 30. We're talking a decade from when it all began again. Last year we had the end of an era at WrestleMania. You know, the Attitude Era is all but dead and gone, and I think that the Hall of Fame next year should reflect that. So the headliner would be The Undertaker. Co-headliners, and don't give me crap for these two because they're really the only guys I could think of, Attitude Era, that have contributed to WWE to really deserve a spot in the Hall of Fame, Goldust and The Godfather. Nobody can question Goldust's pushing the envelope in the Attitude Era. And The Godfather, I mean Christ, from Papa Shango to Kama, Mustafa, Kama the Supreme Fighting Machine, to The Godfather, to The Good Father. He's been around and done so much for the WWE. Major angles, Intercontinental Champion, was supposed to drop the title to Owen at Over the Edge when Owen passed away. So I definitely see The Godfather Tag Champion. Think he could go in there. For the Diva, I would put in Sable. Because as much as I love Trish, Trish wouldn't be where she is going in the Hall of Fame if it wasn't for divas like Sable. Your manager, Paul Bearer. Tag team, the New Age Outlaws. And for the celebrity wing, Motorhead. They've performed 3 theme songs for WWE. The Game, Triple H, which he's basically had since 2001. King of Kings theme for Triple H, and the Evolution theme. They've played Triple H to the ring twice at WrestleMania that I can remember, 17 and 21. They deserve a spot in the celebrity wing, I think. So, that is my Hall of Fame edition of this episode of Renegade Wrestling. Stay tuned throughout the day today and tomorrow on the channel because I'm going to be rebroadcasting, re-uploading classic episodes of Dads on Wrestling where myself and Jeff Meacham give our WrestleMania memories from WrestleManias 1 through 26. There was 3 parts done for that with 1 through 9, 10 through 18, and then 19 through 26. And then I'm going to upload the results shows for WrestleMania 27 and 28 featuring myself and Jeff. Try and get everyone hyped up for WrestleMania, listening to me and Jeff's thoughts on WrestleMania's past. And then be on the lookout Saturday for a round table predictions episode right here in the Casa D18 studios. Myself will be here, Statboy will be here, Pinky will be here, and there might just be a couple of extra surprises thrown in there. I'm not going to tell you about it though, I want to make sure you tune in. So until then, I'm the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams, and I will see you next time right here on the Casa D18 Studios channel.